Increased contribution from Styldrift, albeit lower than expected, resulted in record production for the business, with a total of 3.829 million tonnes being delivered, representing a 12.8% increase year-on-year. Total development for the business increased by 11.2% to 39.1 kilometres. The increase is mainly attributable to the additional working cost development related to the introduction of our South Shaft UG2. The BRPM IMS panel ratio remains well above our target of 1.5. BRPM tonnes delivered decreased by 1.7% to 2.229 million tonnes, with an 11% decrease in Merensky tonnes delivered, directly attributable to the depletion of Merensky reserves at South Shaft, and a 38.3% increase in UG2 tonnes delivered, aligned to recommencing UG2 operations at South Shaft. The BRPM built-up head grade reduced by 4.8% to 4.01 4E grams per tonne, attributable to localised higher-off reef dilution at North Shaft Phase 3, Merensky, and the increased contribution of lower-grade South Shaft UG2. Styldrift tonnes delivered increased by 42% to 1.6 million tonnes, in line with the ramp-up progress. At a 4E grade of 3.77 grams per tonne, this being a 9.3% year-on-year increase in grade. For the 2019 year, the addition of the Mesevi concentrator afforded us the ability to treat all delivered production from our mines, along with the flexibility to treat a higher percentage of UG2. Total tonnes milled increased by 12.5% to 3.847 million tonnes, of which BRPM contributed 2.22 million tonnes and Styldrift 1.625 million tonnes milled. Merensky milled volumes grew by 9% to 3.266 million tonnes as a result of Styldrift's ramp-up production. UG2 increased by 37.4% to 581,000 tonnes as a result of the introduction of South Shaft UG2. The recently commissioned Mesevi concentrator treated 1.158 million tonnes for the year, of which 803,000 tonnes were Merensky and 355,000 tonnes UG2. Year-on-year, the overall recovery decreased by 1.6% to 83.07%. This is a result of lower recovery potential at the Mesevi concentrator in its MF1 form, and BRPM secondary mill was offline for a period during the second quarter due to electrical repairs. The 1.3% lower head grade and also load shedding disruptions throughout the latter part of the year. The increase in milled tonnes was offset by lower grade and lower recoveries, yielding a 9% increase to 401,040 ounces and a 9.1% increase of platinum ounces to 260,000 ounces in concentrate. Our labour complement is aligned with our operational and capital requirements in the context of the growth of our business. Total labour increased by 6.1% to 10,059, aligned to the Styldrift's operational and capital requirements. Working cost employees increased by 52.3% to 8,899 employees. This increase is primarily due to the movement of employees from capital to working costs as Styldrift transitioned to a commercial operation in January of 2019. BRPM working cost employees increased by 3.6% to 5,093 employees, aligned with the introduction of South Shaft UG2. Capital labour decreased by 68.1% to 1,160 employees, primarily linked with Styldrift's capital requirements. Styldrift's increased contribution to overall tonnes improved the tonnes milled per total employee costed by 10.2% to 36.8 tonnes. Our business is in a transition phase, with the Styldrift capital project nearing completion and the focus shifting to an operational mine, and a shift to the UG2 ore body at BRPM South Shaft as its Merensky resources are being depleted. While we achieve significant production and construction milestones at BRPM, Styldrift and the concentrator facilities, the overall volume and cost performance across our operations was a little disappointing. despite a 12.5% and 9% increase respectively in milled tons and 4 metals in concentrate. As a business, we expected higher unit costs, taking cognizance of the fact that Styldrift is in ramp-up and not able to fully realise steady-state scale of economy benefits. Due to our H1 performance, we revised our initial 2019 guidance upward to between 12,500 and 13,300 rands per 4E ounce to account for the operational and technical challenges being experienced at Styldrift. However, our cost performance was weaker than anticipated, with our cost per 4E ounce exceeding our end of H1 guidance by 6.3% due to higher than planned operating costs, lower volumes and grade at both Styldrift and BRPM during the second half of the year. Total cash costs for the group increased by 2.887 billion rands to 5.675 billion rands, with the increase mainly attributable to Styldrift as it came into commercial operation in 2019. Unit costs per tonne milled accounted to 1,475 rand per tonne, and the cash operating cost for the business per 4E ounce of 14,139 rand. I'll now take you through segmental costs for each of those operations. Total cash operating costs at BRPM increased by 8.5% from 2.778 billion in 2018 to 3.024 billion in 2019. On-mine inflation of 6.5%, an additional cost attributable to the reinstating of South Shaft UG2. Cash operating costs per tonne milled increased by 12.2%, equating to a 6.3% compounded annual growth rate from 2015. Key drivers to the 29 unit cost increases are the 8.5% increase in cash operating costs and a decrease in BRPM total tonnes milled year on year. This is made up of reduced Merensky production at North Shaft and South Shaft of 236,000 tonnes, of which South Shaft was 150,000 tonnes. The reduction in South Shaft Merensky was in line with the depletion of its reserves. Increased UG2 contribution from South Shaft of 127,000 tonnes and North Shaft of 32,000 tonnes of UG2. The net impact was a 77,000 or 3.3% reduction in BRPM tonnes milled. The lower milled volumes, combined with an 8.5% increase in cash costs, a 4.8% year-on-year reduction in built-up head grade, and low associated recoveries with that grade of 1.3%, yielded a 20% increase in unit costs per 4 ounce of 12,562 rand. The key drivers contributing to the higher year-on-year and unit costs were a decline in South Shaft Merensky as the resource depletes, exacerbated by rising complexity related to face flexibility at South Shaft, the introduction of South Shaft UG2 and associated ramp-up, lower productivities, grade and recovery potential, lower ounce production due to localised geological conditions experienced at North Shaft Phase 3 during the second half of the year. The 12,562 rand per 4 ounce equates to a 7.5% compounded annual growth rate from 2015 for the business. Cash operating cost per 4 ounce is expected to be in line with mining inflation in 2020. Through scale of economy benefits as South Shaft UG2 volumes and grade increase, and focus on mining discipline to maximise stope widths and minimise off-reef mining. For the reporting period at Styldrift, total cash operating costs amounted to 2.651 billion rands, yielding unit operating costs of 1,630 rand per tonne milled and 16,504 rand per 4 ounce. 50 million rand in additional costs relating primarily to trackless maintenance, early onboarding of crews and training costs resulted in a 2% increase in unit costs relative to guidance. The 1.625 million tonnes milled, which is in line with guidance, combined with lower planned grade and associated recovery resulted in 4 ounces in production of 160,000 ounces, relative to an approximate guidance of 168,000 ounces at the end of H1. This equated to a 4.4% increase in unit costs over our guidance. The lower recovered grade achieved was attributable to higher than planned stoping widths, increased redevelopment dilution required to re-establish stoping sections at Styldrift, mining crew experience and efficiencies, and commensurate impact of lower grade on concentrate recovery. We remain confident that the year-on-year improvements at Styldrift in all key operational metrics realized in grades, stope crew efficiency, stoping width, fleet availabilities and tip-to-face distances will realize the operational benefits associated with a mechanized operation at steady state. Year-on-year total capital expenditure decreased by 52% to 1.661 billion rands. The main contributor to this decrease was Styldrift expansion capital, which decreased to 1.225 billion from 3.213 billion as the bulk of the Styldrift life of mine infrastructure and capital footprint approaches conclusion. Replacement capital of 101 million is comprised of 21 million spent at our Phase 3 project at BRPM North Shaft, which concluded that project, and 80 million spent on replacement projects extending north and south shaft declines at Styldrift beyond the initial capital footprint. SIB increased from 3.4% of operating costs in 2018 to 4% to 225 million in 2019, in line with the increased stay-in-business requirements at Styldrift, primarily related to tractors fleet rebuilds and section strike belt forward moves.